When Top Gun Maverick hit theaters, it didn't just land, it soared. After more than 3 decades, Tom Cruise returned as Pete Maverick Mitchell and reminded everyone why the original Top Gun became such a cultural juggernaut in the first place. Naturally, with the sequel's huge success and emotional punch, talk of a third movie took off almost immediately. And let's be real, once Maverick raked in over $1 billion and got people hooked on dogfights and nostalgia again, it felt like Top Gun 3 wasn't a question of if, but when. So, what's really going on with Top Gun 3? Who's in? What's the story shaping up to be? And why are we still waiting? Let's dive into everything we know so far. So as we were saying that after Top Gun Maverick flew into theaters and completely dominated the box office, a third movie honestly felt like a no-brainer. It was almost like once Tom Cruise threw those aviators back on, the world collectively said, yep, we need more of this. It had been a whopping 36 years since the original Top Gun made its mark as a pop culture phenomenon, and Cruise returning as Pete Maverick Mitchell somehow managed to capture all that magic again, plus some. Maverick didn't just bring back nostalgia, it gave the franchise new life. With high-flying stunts, edge-of-your-seat aerial sequences, and a story that was both fresh and emotionally grounded, it reminded audiences why they loved this world in the first place. And because it introduced a new batch of pilots in training, there was already a built-in opportunity to keep the story going. It's no surprise fans started clamoring for Top Gun 3 practically the moment they walked out of the theater. The film itself was a massive hit, not just in terms of buzz, but financially too. We're talking $1.4 billion worldwide, making it one of 2022's biggest surprise box office successes. But even with that kind of momentum, the third installment didn't go into immediate production. That might seem surprising, especially in today's age of instant sequels, but the delay isn't necessarily a bad thing. So what's going on with Top Gun 3? Well, the most recent update suggests the team behind the scenes is really being deliberate about the next step. Jay Ellis, who played Reuben Payback Fitch in Maverick, offered a little insight into why it's taking time. According to him, they're still working hard on the script, and the priority is making sure the story is absolutely solid before they move forward. It's not about rushing to cash in, it's about crafting something that's going to stand on its own as another unforgettable film. Ellis even mentioned that Tom Cruise is being just as particular this time around as he was with Maverick. And that's saying something, because Cruise pushed the envelope hard for that film, like actually filming inside real fighter jets to give it that extra level of realism. So naturally, with Cruise, producer Jerry Bruckheimer, and director Joe Kosinski all back in the mix, it's safe to say they're aiming high once again. Even though it wasn't officially confirmed until January 2024, most people assumed Top Gun 3 was happening. It was just a matter of when. And when they did finally announce it, they didn't hold back. Cruise was coming back, and so were other familiar faces. That news alone was enough to stir up excitement again, but even with the announcement, things stayed relatively quiet for a while, until early 2025, when Jay Ellis reassured everyone that development was still moving forward, just carefully. And let's be real, considering how well Maverick balanced honoring the past while pushing things forward, that same level of care is exactly what fans are hoping for again. Nobody wants a rushed sequel that just repeats the formula. So who's coming back? Well, aside from Cruise, we know that Miles Teller is set to return as Bradley Rooster Bradshaw, and Glenn Powell is also on board as Jake Hangman Sarrazin. Those two really helped define the new generation of pilots, so it makes sense they'd be central again. Other cast members haven't been officially confirmed yet, but it seems likely a good chunk of the Maverick ensemble will return. Now, when it comes to the story, there are a few directions Top Gun 3 could take. Maverick didn't leave us with a cliffhanger or an obvious setup for another movie, but that doesn't mean there isn't room to grow. One idea that's already floating around is the conflict between human pilots and drones. In Maverick, there was a storyline where Admiral Kane was pushing to replace pilots with unmanned aircraft. That thread didn't dominate the movie, but it's the kind of setup that could totally become the backbone of a sequel. Imagine a story where Maverick and the team have to prove that there's still something irreplaceable about a human pilot's instincts. It could lead to a powerful and even emotional narrative, especially if it means bringing in more characters from the original film for one last mission. A reunion like that would not only raise the stakes, but also serve as a tribute to the legacy of the franchise. But not everyone from Maverick will necessarily be back. Ed Harris, who played Chester Hammer Kane, has already hinted that he's probably not returning. In a recent interview, he joked that he doesn't see why they'd need him for the third movie, and honestly, that might be for the best. His character served a purpose in Maverick. He was the stern authority figure pushing against Maverick's unconventional style, but repeating that dynamic again might feel like déjà vu. What made Harris's role work was that it helped highlight Maverick's rebellious nature. Even after all these years, Maverick still can't help but butt heads with higher-ups. But Top Gun 3 doesn't necessarily need another angry superior figure scolding him. That's been done. Twice. Instead, it might be more interesting to flip the script. What if Maverick becomes the authority figure? He's clearly grown and changed, and Maverick showed that he has what it takes to lead and mentor. Turning him into the one who has to manage a team, enforce rules, and maybe even rein in some hotshot younger pilot could open the door to all kinds of character development. It would be a refreshing change, and it would allow the story to explore new ground rather than just replay old beats. Plus, let's not forget that Maverick already nailed the emotional reunion with Iceman, played by Val Kilmer. That scene hit hard and was beautifully done. Not everyone from the old crew needs to return for Top Gun 3 to have emotional weight. In fact, part of what made Maverick so effective was how it acknowledged the passage of time. It embraced the idea that things change, people move on, and sometimes the most powerful stories are about what's left unsaid. If Top Gun 3 leans into that theme, legacy, change, mentorship, it could be something really special. There's so much potential to explore Maverick not just as a pilot, but as a leader and a person who's still evolving. And with the tension of drones versus pilots in the background, there's already a strong thematic undercurrent that ties everything together. Even though there's still a lot we don't know, like who the main antagonist will be or what kind of mission the pilots will face, there's no shortage of speculation. But what fans really want, more than anything, is that same mix of adrenaline, emotion, and character depth that made Maverick such a standout. And it looks like Cruise and the team know that, which is probably why they're taking their time. It's not about just slapping together another sequel, it's about making something that feels earned. So even if the wait ends up being a little longer, it's a good sign that everyone involved is focused on getting it right rather than just getting it done. And that's where things stand. Top Gun 3 is coming, it's just not coming fast. But with Cruise back, the key cast returning, and the same creative team at the helm, there's plenty of reason to be excited. As long as they bring back the high-stakes flying, the emotional storytelling, and those iconic motorcycle and sunset shots, there's every chance Top Gun 3 could be another blockbuster. We'll just have to stay tuned to see when it finally hits the runway. And that's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.